Hi guys, welcome back to S.U.R.E Parenting. Today I wanted to talk about something that comes up all the time. I feel like I say that a lot in my videos, but that's why I make the videos, because things keep coming up all the time. That is hitting little kids when they start to hit. So some of the biggest concerns are, what have I done wrong? I don't hit my kid. Why is my kid hitting? Where did they learn this? Another one is, is my kid a bully? Are they going to be that mean kid on the school bus? Another one is just this feeling of, I must stop this right this second. They can never hit again. And all of it stems from not really understanding the child's brain. So let's start there. So the brain of an infant when it's born has a fully intact animal brain. That means that their automatic systems like breathing and their heart rate and temperature regulation, they work. They don't work perfectly right away, because we've seen that when babies are able to do skin to skin with mama, they're much better at those three things. But very quickly, they're able to do all that stuff on their own. And a lot of kids, even right away, can do all those things on their own. What's not intact, almost at all, is the very front of their brain, the prefrontal cortex. That part of the brain develops all the way to age 25. So when you are dealing with a toddler, you're dealing with a very underdeveloped brain. And that leads to a lot of problems with things that the prefrontal cortex would control, such as impulses, thinking before you act, understanding what somebody else's experience is and that it would be different than yours, being able to plan out something ahead of time, like, oh, I want to do this, so this is going to be step 1, step 2, step 3, and then go through and follow through step 1, step 2, and step 3. It's called executive functioning. Those things don't exist, and we don't expect that they would exist for a newborn, but we sort of start to expect it once kids develop language. We're like, oh, well, they can talk, so they're kind of like an adult now, so they should just control all their impulses. It's not the case. So to that first concern, what have you done wrong? Probably nothing. Yes, kids will emulate behavior. So if there is hitting in the family, it is much harder to teach a child to control their impulses when the adults are not controlling their impulses. That will make it much more challenging. So don't hit. That one's fairly easy. But what will happen is that your child will use the tools they have available to them to solve the problems that arise. So my daughter is 5 months old today, and she uses 2 tools, her hands and her mouth, for everything. And so it's not all that surprising that in 6 months, she might also use her hands or her mouth to solve her problems. And we have to remember that we haven't yet taught our kids what other tools they have or what other ways they have to resolve the problems that arise for them. So they're just doing what comes naturally to them. They are primates, they are tool users, and they've got these 2 great tools and nothing else. So they use them. We have their brain working against them, and then we also kind of have their instinct working against them, because their instinct is to physically solve their problem, whether that's pushing somebody, hitting somebody, snatching something back, whatever it is, they're solving their problem in the way that their little 1 or 2 or 3 or 4-year-old brain thinks about that problem. That's mine. That's a problem. I'll solve it, and that doesn't make them bad or mean or bullies or anything like that. They're tiny, tiny people that are doing the best they can with an underdeveloped brain and a lack of tools. So we don't have to worry about them being bullies just because they hit and push and shove and kick and do all those crazy things when they're little, because they don't yet have the ability to think and separate their experience from somebody else's, and to comprehend that they have different experiences and different understandings and different ways of thinking about the world. They don't possess that ability yet, so they can't actually be bullies. So when we're calling a 3-year-old a bully, they're not a bully. It's not possible. Might they be solving a problem in a very poorly advised way? Absolutely. But that doesn't make them a bully. They don't have the malice or the intent or the forethought or follow through to be a bully. So that addresses that concern. The feeling of panic, like I have to stop this, they can never hit again. I must be a terrible parent. Nope, you're not. Kids hit. That happens. Doesn't make you a terrible parent. You're responsible for how you react and how you help your child to learn to react better. But you're not a terrible parent because your kid hits. Almost all kids hit. There are different kinds of kids. There are different temperaments of kids. There's a video on that I will link. But kids most often will hit or bite or kick or do something like that when they are in their toddler years. It's just, and even older, because again, the prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until age 25. So your 7-year-old might get super, super angry and hit somebody. It happens. So what do? What are you supposed to do about it? First of all, focus and make sure that you are calm, because you pouring your angst or anger or panic energy onto that situation is going to make it worse. So take a beat, calm yourself down, remember that they're just little kids. They're supposed to struggle with this stuff. We will help them. It will be okay. And then move forward. One of the things that I really love to do is to help the hitter recognize the other person's experience. So first I will sportscast and I will say, oh, I saw that you hit your sister. And then I'll point stuff out. Look at her face. Do you see how she's crying? That means she's so sad. That hurt her. And showing him those nonverbal cues, because little kids are not born reading those cues. Now, very little kids, they feel energy and they can mimic reactions. So people will be like, oh, my 6-month-old has empathy because they cried when their cousin cried. It's not really true. What happens is that alert from that other baby tells them something must be wrong, and so they're trying to sound the alert too. They're mimicking and they feel the anxious energy, but they're not cognizant of, oh, my cousin is so sad and that makes me sad and I'm going to cry as an effort of consoling my cousin. Like that isn't, it's way too higher level thinking for babies or even toddlers. And again, they mimic behaviors. So if they see that you hug people when they cry, they might then hug somebody when they cry. They don't necessarily exactly know why they're doing it, but they know that as part of this social unit, that's what we do when somebody cries. We hug them. So it's nuanced, and there are a lot of layers to empathy. But because they cannot fully develop and understand and comprehend other people's experiences yet, they need our help to point out those nonverbal cues. So we show them, this is what happened. And I ask kids, and this can be my kids or other kids, because I've taught elementary and early childhood as well. And I did this in particularly early childhood, because first graders don't really hit each other usually. Not in school. At home, yes. In school, not so much. And some do. Again, like huge spectrum of personality types and things that kids are dealing with. So I'm not saying something's wrong with your first grader if they're struggling with that impulse, but I'm just saying as a teacher, it didn't come up that often. With the 3-year-olds and 2-year-olds, comes up all the time, like daily. So I will say to them, what can you do to make them feel better? This is instead of the forced apology, because if I tell somebody that they need to apologize, they don't really comprehend what that means. Like, they know that means say the word sorry, but they don't mean it yet. If they don't choose it, then they don't mean it. And I'm teaching them to lie to get out of trouble. Who wants that? I want them to think about this person and take a step and action towards their comfort. This is the act of loving somebody. And so I will ask them, what can you do to make them feel better? And 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, they sometimes still need a lot of modeling, even 4-year-olds. they won't know what to do. They're feeling embarrassed, they're feeling confused, they're feeling ticked off because they had a very good reason to hit whoever it was. And so I might need to do it for them. I might need to model for them. Oh, you know what? I think we should give her a hug. I'll give her a hug. Oh, I'm so sorry that you got hurt. I saw that happened. Are you okay? What can I do to make you feel better? And I'll ask that child. And this isn't the like over dramatic, like, oh, poor baby. Because when you do that, you start to pit kids against each other and you teach this other child that they're the victim. We do not want kids to think they're the victim. We want them to acknowledge, like, yeah, that wasn't cool. And this would make me feel better. And to take that action of stating their need and having their need met and moving forward. So helping that kid feel better. Then you go back to the beginning. So I saw that you really wanted that toy, and when your sister took it from you, it made you so mad, and then you hit her. Is that right? Is that what happened? And they're like, yeah, that's what happened. And so I asked them, what else could you do if she takes something that you like? And they might know, they might not. So one solution might be asking mom for help. Yes, in the sibling rivalry podcast, I talked about staying out of it. But when kids are still really little, they might need some coaching. They might need some strategy. So in this instance, I think it's okay to give them ideas. You don't want to just barrel in and say, you hit her, so now you don't get it. Or hear him screaming and say, give it back to him. You don't want to just be the arbitrator of the disagreement. You want to sort of coach them through how to solve this problem on their own so that very soon in the future they can solve this problem on their own. But still, little kids need help. That's just part of parenting. So, okay, so maybe you could ask mom for help. Maybe you could trade her. Go get some other toy that she likes and say, can I trade you for this? Because that one is actually my toy and I really like that one. Here's your toy, and do a trade. Maybe it's something that she just wants to have a turn with and you have to wait your turn, and that's really tricky. So you ask mom to set a timer, and we set a timer for, if you're going to set a timer, involve both kids in that. How many minutes do you need for your turn? Many little kids have no idea, and you suggest something like 2 minutes or 1 minute, and they will happily have their turn and pass on the toy. A little bit older, I like to break away from the timer idea, because really it's a matter of you just have to wait until that person is done. That's reality. We don't do forced sharing, because sharing in that context doesn't mean sharing. It means give that person what you have, and we don't share as adults. I'm not giving my neighbor my car. Like, no, that's my car. I'm out shopping and my husband wants my car. I'm not going to drive home and give him my car. I'm going to finish what I'm doing and then he can use my car, so it's just more realistic. So first, address yourself, make sure you're calm, remind yourself that they are doing the best that they can with the tools that they have. Second, say what you see or say what you heard. Third, ask the child who did the hitting what they can do to make it better. Point out, those signs, those nonverbal cues, and ask them what they can do to make it better. If they can, let them. If they are willing to do a hug, if they're willing to do a kiss, if they're willing to give that kid a toy, if they're willing to get a boo-boo buddy, they're willing to get a glass of water. That's one of the favorites in preschool, because it's something that you can do for somebody, so it's still an act of affection and caring, but it doesn't require so much vulnerability on your part. So it's a really great stepping stone. And in fact, cold water helps to reset the nervous system. So it actually does make a difference. And if they can't do it on their own, you do it for them and you show them what that would look like. And every time until they can do it on their own. Acknowledge that the other kiddo got hurt, ask them what they need to feel better, but don't over dramatize it and make them this poor victim. That doesn't help them, that doesn't help the other kid. And then go into problem solving with the older kid. When this happens again, because it What can we do differently next time? What can we do to solve this problem? And help them to problem solve and come up with strategies. Does that mean they won't hit again? Nope. You're going to repeat this series of events over and over and over and over again because it takes repetition to learn. Now, if your kiddo is really struggling with it, you can start doing like role plays with dinosaurs or with dolls or whatever, and let them practice. That way, you could also switch roles where you're the kid and they're the parent, and they have to teach you what to do. There is some statistics that when you teach something, you actually learn it a lot better. And I think that's true because I teach every week on this channel, and it helps me to remember all of the things that I teach. So that can be a really fun way to do it. Puppets are a really good way to do it. One thing so this is specifically with hitting. If they are just that impulse is too strong for them and they're really struggling, give them another way to direct that impulse that doesn't harm a person. So one of my favorite ways is the sign language sign for stop. It's a very firm, it doesn't have to be, obviously, if you're just signing to another adult, you would just do this. But kids learning it they can do it hard. This part of the hand is really strong, and you can have them do it as hard as they need to do. They can say stop, 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 and hit their hand, and they're getting that energy out without directing it at another person. So stop is a really good one. Stomping their feet, grabbing their hands, even pushing their hands together really, really hard when they're angry. They can push their hands together as hard as they can. If they're even younger and this isn't hitting directed towards a little kid, they're hitting you, consider something. One, they might be asking to play. Kids are a lot like puppies in the way that they invite play. Puppies will like bite your feet to try to get you to play with them, and it's super annoying and quite painful. They have little needle teeth. Kids are the same way. They'll come up and like smack at you to try to get you to play. They need rough and tumble play. Kids need that. And so if they are, sending that message and they're really needing that interaction, by meeting that need, you will alleviate that hitting. You can teach them, say play or play. Is it one hand? I think it might be one hand. But play, is a sign you can teach it. It might be hard. The dexterity of putting down 3 fingers and having 2 up is a little tricky for little kids, but it's still worth showing them. You can say play, mommy, pointing to your mouth to signify saying of a word, giving them another way to meet their need. They're just using the tools they have, right? So there's that. If they're hitting you because they're mad, redirect it. Oh, you are mad. You know what? You can hit this pillow. You can hit this couch. You can kick this ball. They're trying to kick you. Oh, we kick balls instead of people. You can kick a ball. Redirecting it. Some people fear that if they allow their child to express their anger, that they're just going to be like a violent person. Not even remotely true. Children have massive emotions that take over them. They need to be able to express them in some way. So find a way that works for you and keep directing to that outlet. So these things pretty much apply to hitting or biting. I will end up doing another video on biting specifically, probably. The one thing that I learned from this woman is so cool. She has an entire business directly around helping toddlers stop biting. It's the only thing she does. She's that niched. It's so neat. But one thing that she did teach that I thought was super brilliant was that if your kid is a biter, telling them to breathe, it's just too passive. But if you have them clench their teeth and breathe through their teeth, it stimulates the same feeling. So they might go when they're mad and they're biting down, but they're not biting a person. So that's a good alternative as well. Helping kids recognize what is it that made them move forward with that tool and what tool can they use instead. As they develop those new tools and they practice them over and over and over and over again, they will start relying on those tools. Now those tools have to work. So if you're dealing with a 3-year-old who's hitting their 1-year-old sister, probably the tools of like talking to her and explaining yourself aren't going to work because she's 1. And so no, he's not going to use those tools because they don't work. So you have to give him tools that work, like trading or getting mom or being mad and going and kicking a ball instead because you're so mad, and then going in back to solve the problem. But just know that they're doing the best they can. They don't hit for no reason. They don't hit for the sake of being mean. They're struggling with impulse control and they're struggling with emotions. So we help them with those two things, and that problem disappears. If you need some more help, if your situation is unique, please set up a call. It is free. It's at bit.ly/callsammy. Link is always below every video. I'll also put it on the screen, and we can talk about it. We can talk about what's going on in your life and what you specifically need help with and develop a plan for you. So I look forward to talking to you. Please put in the comments below, did you have a hitter? Did you not? Were you one of those parents who, like, one of your kids just never hit, and when another one did, you're like, what on earth is this? Those cases always fascinate me because they are so rare. And let me know what you think of these tools, how they worked for you. Start the conversation, and be sure to like the video and subscribe. If you click the notification bell, then you will be notified every time I post a video. I am aiming for every Thursday, so hopefully I will see you back next week. Bye, guys.